AMD Ryzen 9 9900X 12-core CPU benchmark leak, beats Intel Core i9-14900KS in single-core and matches 14900K in multi-thread test. AMD's Ryzen 9 9900X 12-core desktop CPU has been benchmarked in Geekbench, scoring some impressive gains versus Intel's 14th Gen CPUs. The AMD Ryzen 9 9900X 100,000,000,662 CPU is a 12-core and 24-thread variant. This chip has a base clock of 4.4 GHz and a boost clock of up to 5.6 GHz with a 76 MB cache. The interesting thing with this chip is that it has a TDP of 120 watts, much lower than the 170 watts of Ryzen 9 7900X chips. Once again, while the chip retains the same boost clock speed as the Ryzen 9 7900X, the base clock sees a -300 MHz reduction, which is once again to fit within the 120 watts power limit. But once again, the 12-core should be able to boast some nice multi-threaded capabilities. Following are the TDP comparisons between the 4 chips of this generation with the prior one. Image source: Geekbench 6. Coming to the performance benchmark, the chip was tested within the Geekbench 6 benchmark on an Asus ROG Crossrex 670 Gen motherboard with 32 GB of DDR5 memory. The chip was running at a peak frequency of above 5.6 GHz, 5664 MHz. In terms of performance, the Ryzen 9 9900X scored 3,401 points in the single-core test and 19,756 points in the multi-core test. This puts the single-core performance of the AMD Ryzen 9 9900X 12-core CPU ahead of the current fastest chip, the Intel Core i9-14900KS, which scores around 3,250 points in the single-core test, and even the multi-core test is quite phenomenal for this 12-core part, which is almost on par with the Core i9-14900K, which scores around 20,500 points on average. Compared to the Ryzen 9 7900X 12-core, the Ryzen 9 9900X delivers a 16% uplift in the single-core and 11% uplift in the multi-core test. We should also remember that the Intel Core i9 CPUs here were tested at the pre-Intel baseline default settings, which further reduce the performance of the chips to ensure better stability. These new profiles can lead to up to 15% performance degradation versus the standard settings. These are some impressive performance numbers which, if end up being true, really showcase the strong single-core performance lead that Zen 5 CPUs have to offer. Of course, Geekbench is but just one synthetic benchmark, so we can't truly base its overall performance on a single test, but as we have mentioned earlier, expect the final numbers to be great for AMD Ryzen 9000 desktop CPUs. According to AMD themselves, Geekbench is one of the best case scenarios for Zen 5's IPC uplift, seeing up to 19% increase over Zen 5 as shown in the slide below. Once again, the AMD Ryzen 9000 Zen 5 desktop CPUs, including the Ryzen 9 9900X 12-core, hits retail shelves later this month on the AM5 platform, so stay tuned for some action.